She walked into the studio in platinum heels. The cameras adored her, but the contracts demanded silence. In 1978, she became a television icon, America's favorite blonde who could outthink any man in the room. But behind the smile that charmed millions, a storm was already gathering. Why did the woman who seemed to have it all spend her life quietly paying the price for being perfect? Stay with me, because what follows isn't the sitcom story you think you know. It's the life Loni Anderson never fully got to tell. You probably remember her best through soft-lit screens, sitting behind a desk at a Cincinnati radio station that didn't really exist. She was Jennifer Marlowe, the receptionist whose beauty drew you in, but whose intelligence kept you watching. The role made her a fantasy, but the woman behind it, Loni K. Anderson, born August 5, 1945 in St. Paul, Minnesota, was something far more human. Her father, Clayton, worked as an environmental chemist. Her mother, Maxine, had once been a model. Their daughter grew up in a modest Midwestern home where appearances mattered, but love ran deep. Loni's childhood was filled with small stages, school plays, talent shows, and beauty pageants that taught her to smile before she learned to speak her mind. By high school, she was the girl who made heads turn at every football game, and the girl who secretly stayed late to paint the sets for the school play. That balance between beauty and ambition became the quiet theme of her life. She married her college sweetheart, Bruce Hasselberg, at just 20, had her daughter Deidre, and spent her early 20s juggling motherhood, modeling, and local commercials. But inside, she felt unfinished. "I wasn't done being me," she once said. When the marriage ended, she packed up her car and her courage and headed west. No family money, no connections, just a dream and a baby she needed to support. Hollywood in the early 1970s was a maze built by men. The studio system had collapsed, but its ghost still lingered. Women were often cast as ornaments to stories, not the center of them. Anderson spent years auditioning, losing roles, and smiling through rejection. Casting agents told her she was too pretty to be funny, and producers called her Marilyn for television. But she didn't want to be another Marilyn. She wanted to be Mary Tyler Moore with better hair, glamorous yet sharp. Someone who made intelligence look effortless. Her early career read like a scrapbook of guest appearances: SWAT, Policewoman, Harry-O, The Love Boat. For nearly a decade, she survived on short stints and paychecks just big enough to cover rent. But that persistence finally found a purpose when a young producer named Hugh Wilson spotted her photograph. He was casting a new workplace comedy about a failing radio station. The part he had in mind, a beautiful receptionist, had been written as a joke. Anderson turned it into a revolution. WKRP in Cincinnati. Premiered in 1978, and television changed overnight. Jennifer Marlowe wasn't the dumb blonde cliché audiences expected. She was the smartest person in the room, unflappable, self-aware, and subtly feminist. In a time when sitcoms rarely gave women power, Anderson embodied quiet control. She played comedy not as chaos, but as calm. And America adored her for it. But adoration can turn into confinement. The press couldn't separate Loni from Jennifer. Magazine covers declared her TV's perfect woman. Fan letters poured in. Children dressed as her for Halloween. And soon, the network began to blur the line between the woman and the image. CBS used her likeness for posters, product deals, and photo shoots she never approved. It felt like they were selling a doll. She recalled years later. Only the doll had a heartbeat. By 1980, she was earning top billing, but behind that glamour was a silent war. Anderson discovered her male co-stars were earning nearly twice her salary. When she confronted producers, she was told, "It's different for women." She walked off the set. Newspapers painted her as greedy, ungrateful, a diva in gold lame. But her standoff changed the industry. Within months, CBS caved, granting her a raise that quietly set a precedent for other female leads. She didn't talk about it much, but every woman who followed her owed her a piece of that victory. Still, success came with a cost. Her marriage to actor Ross Bickle crumbled under the weight of fame, and her name began circulating through gossip columns more often than casting calls. And then came Burt Reynolds, Hollywood's reigning king of charm and chaos. Their first meeting at a benefit dinner seemed like destiny. Two icons from opposite sides of fame's mirror, each drawn to the other's sparkle. "He made everyone in the room disappear," she said later. What she didn't realize was that the spotlight they shared would one day burn them both. They began dating in 1981, and for a time their romance felt like a living movie. Reynolds was coming off the success of Smokey and the Bandit, and Anderson was TV's sweetheart. Together, they were golden. They adopted a son, Quentin, and appeared on talk shows laughing like they'd cracked the secret to happiness. But fame magnifies everything, especially pain. The tabloids built them up as the perfect couple, then tore them down when rumors of affairs and arguments began. Behind closed doors, their marriage unraveled in slow motion. Anderson later described moments of emotional manipulation and alleged physical abuse. Reynolds dismissed the accusations, blaming prescription drugs and depression. He joked in interviews about her spending habits, saying he once gave her a credit card with a $45,000 limit, and she maxed it in half an hour. To the public, it was humor. To her, humiliation. The fairy tale was turning into a farce, and she was the punchline. The final blow came when Reynolds filed for divorce in 1993, leaking private details to tabloids that painted Anderson as materialistic and cold. Court records later revealed his finances were collapsing. He owed millions. But instead of pity, headlines turned cruel. Loni Anderson, once America's dream girl, was now its cautionary tale. "I became the villain in someone else's story," she told a reporter in 1995, "and I had to live with it." The aftermath nearly ended her career. Studios hesitated to hire her. Talk shows wanted scandal, not sincerity, so she disappeared on her own terms. She focused on Quentin, cared for her aging parents, and tried to rebuild a life without the noise. In 1995, she released her memoir, My Life in High Heels. It was part confession, part survival guide. She wrote about the loneliness of fame, about body image, about learning to forgive yourself when the world won't. It wasn't sensational, it was human. But Hollywood doesn't know what to do with women who grow honest. Offers slowed. She took work where she could find it: TV movies, sitcom cameos, a recurring role on Nurses. The paychecks were smaller, but the freedom was bigger. "I started acting for me again," she said, "not for the headline." Her private life stabilized. Her daughter Deidre grew into adulthood. Quentin entered college. In the late 1990s, Anderson turned her attention to advocacy, speaking about domestic abuse awareness and women's health. She used her celebrity quietly, choosing compassion over cameras. When Reynolds declared bankruptcy in 1996 and later apologized publicly, Anderson didn't gloat. "Forgiveness," she said, "is the only way to stop carrying someone else's weight." Years drifted by. Her face, still luminous, began appearing in nostalgia features. Where Are They Now? Specials that framed her as a relic from a brighter, sillier time. She didn't mind. "It's nice to be remembered," she told one interviewer. In 2008, she found something better than fame: peace. She married Bob Flick, one of the founding members of the Brothers Four, the folk group known for Greenfields. They'd met more than 40 years earlier at a Minnesota event when she was barely 20. Life had brought them full circle. The wedding was intimate, no paparazzi, no TV deals, just music, laughter, and a sense of homecoming. The 2010s brought small projects a cameo in So Notorious, appearances on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and a late career role in the web series My Sister Is So Gay. But what mattered most to her was family. She spoke openly about aging gracefully, rejecting the idea that women in their 70s had to disappear. "Beauty changes," she said. "It doesn't die. It just finds a quieter light." When Burt Reynolds passed away in 2018, reporters rushed to her for comment. She didn't attack him. She simply said she hoped he'd found peace. It was the kind of grace that had always defined her, even when the world hadn't returned it. Fans who'd once watched her for glamour now admired her for strength. She attended charity events for lung health, mentoring younger actresses about contracts, self-worth, and boundaries. Yet behind the grace, there were health struggles she kept private. In 2023, she reportedly began treatment for uterine leiomyosarcoma, a rare aggressive cancer. She didn't make it public. She wanted normalcy, dinners with her husband, holidays with her grandchildren, long phone calls with Deidre. When the disease spread, she faced it the same way she'd faced fame, with calm determination and a touch of humor. "I've had a wonderful run," she told a close friend. "I got to play a woman who could do anything, and then I got to become one." On August 3rd, 2025, 2 days before her 80th birthday, Loni Anderson passed away peacefully at home in California. News broke quietly through People magazine, followed by tributes from co-stars and fans across generations. Howard Hesseman, who'd played her boss on WKRP, once said she brought intelligence to beauty and never let the two cancel each other out. That line resurfaced on social media, shared thousands of times. For a moment, the world remembered not the scandals, not the headlines, but the laughter, the kind that doesn't age. Her death reopened the conversation about what it means to survive Hollywood's glare. She'd lived through every phase of the industry's treatment of women, the ingenue era, the sex symbol craze, the middle age invisibility, and she outlasted them all. She had been objectified, underpaid, mocked, and written off, and still left behind a legacy of humor, grace, and quiet strength. Film historians now see WKRP in Cincinnati as more than a sitcom. It was one of the first shows to let a woman hold power without apology. And that tone came from Loni herself. She rewrote the archetype of the blonde bombshell, turning it into a statement instead of a stereotype. In an interview late in life, she said, "Jennifer Marlowe was the woman I wanted to be when I grew up. Maybe we became each other in the end." She left behind not just reruns, but a roadmap for actresses who refuse to be boxed in, for women who've been underestimated, for anyone who's had to reinvent themselves after heartbreak. When Variety published her obituary, it ended with a simple line: "She laughed through the fire." That might be the truest summary of her life. Even now, her story carries a strange comfort. In an age obsessed with youth and perfection, she stood as proof that reinvention is ageless. You can fail, fall, lose, forgive, and still sparkle. Every laugh track from WKRP now feels like an echo of her resilience. Every rerun is a reminder that the characters we love are often reflections of the actors who gave more of themselves than they ever admitted. So when you see that familiar smile on your screen again, the gold hair, the calm voice, the effortless grace, remember that it was hard-won. Behind every scene was a woman fighting to be seen as more than a punchline, more than a headline, more than a body. Loni Anderson taught us something Hollywood often forgets: that dignity can survive fame, and that sometimes the most powerful comeback isn't a new role, it's peace. If stories like this move, use stories of beauty, endurance, and the quiet cost of staying strong, subscribe, stay curious, and keep watching. Because behind every legend, there's always the untold story waiting for the light.